of crazy high impact ministry, a time that's probably going to have very stressful times and other times that are great and whatever. In that time, what are you going to do to keep your spiritual energy up? I know that your job is challenging and you want to find the best possible ways to lead your students to a connected life with Christ. Your job is one of the most important jobs in the world. We want to use this podcast as a way to connect you with the tools that will help you succeed in this ever-changing world that is your youth ministry, helping you to bring the biggest impact possible. Hey, welcome to the Revive Youth Leader Podcast. Today we've got a special guest on, a good friend of mine, Rich Maskalony. He's a great guy. He's been in ministry in several different contexts now. He's been in youth ministry for a while. He leads some pretty crazy stuff in his context. But Rich is just a great guy. He's been on the podcast before in audio version, now in video, so you get to see his stunning face. Anyways, I just want to introduce you all to Rich and just let you meet him and hear about what he's like and everything. Hey, Rich, how's it going, man?
Hey, Ryan, good morning. It's going okay. It's going okay. We turned this room I'm in here into, my wife called it a sports bar, quote unquote, because I have a TV and two monitors. And the Mets, my New York Mets, my New York Rangers, and Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes were all playing at the same time. And so I tried to get all three games in, but due to the corruption of the NCAA, the game was not available on streaming. So anyway, I had my Rangers and Mets up and got 2 L's last night.
Yeah, we got an L last night too. The Oilers were playing the St. Louis Blues, and they're pretty much in a similar position in the standings, and Oilers lost in overtime, so it was a little
The
upsetting.
Blues are kind of ridiculous because they've traded away so many pieces.
Yeah.
You guys have traded and who's that defenseman? I just added him to both my fantasy teams that you guys picked up.
Oh man, I can't remember. It starts with an S or a C. I can't remember.
And you picked up that center too.
Yeah, Adam Hendrick.
Yes, who everyone wanted, including us, the Rangers, since we were looking for center depth. But man, I'm so sorry. It's hockey is crazy. We lost to the Penguins last night.
Yeah, and the Penguins have been terrible too. You know, sometimes the teams I think there's this thing where they feel like, oh, this is an easy team, and then they just don't show up for the game, and they kind of do that in most sports, but it's just super frustrating.
So the Mets, our starter Sean Manaea was hitless through 5 2/3.
Wow.
And then he had walked 2, and then third out guy got the hit over our third baseman Beatty. But not Beltran, Brandon Nimmo, I see similarities, moved him to left because we picked up some good fielding pieces that can't hit in Bader and Tyrone Taylor. And Nimmo, because there's a guy at second who'd walked, he picked up the ball, threw it hard and it was 2 outs, threw it hard to the catcher, got the out. So, we were scoreless through 6, even though Manaea got the one hit. We got to extra innings with no score.
Wow.
But in the 10th, they got 5.
Goodness.
5.
That's hard.
There was a second base error, there was a pitching error, and then a homer. So 5-0, and it was brutal, man.
Man, those are tough losses. Even last night, it was in overtime, and the Oilers were leading for a good bit of the game, and then they tied it up, and then overtime, and then they lose. And the sometimes those teams, like the Blues specifically, it doesn't seem to matter who's on their roster. They're like a hard-fought team. They just will keep on fighting. And, a couple of years ago, right, they won the Stanley Cup after coming from being the last-place team in the NHL midway through the season. And I know that in no other sporting league that had ever happened. That's just unreal kind of stuff. So you're basically what you were saying is your wife kind of help you turn this into like a man cave, so when you're yelling at the TV, she doesn't have to deal with
it. She kind of empowered me. I kind of did it bit by bit, but it's fun. Being able to have the hockey game and the baseball game, I'm like, hey, it's this is the first time I'm going to get to see Sean Manaea start. And in my head, basically, we've clinched the playoffs as the Rangers.
Yeah.
So you can decide whether or not seeding is important. There are analysts who say, listen, like, don't try to win, just try different lineups, try different things. I think Laviolette is going to try to get as many wins as possible, and I'm fine with that. I don't think it's just about him and his overall win record. I don't know if you're aware, but Peter Laviolette is actually pretty high up. I think
he's
top 6 in the career wins category. He's an intense coach. He's very similar to with the intensity to our own to Thibodeau for the Knicks. Like, dude, it's good to have intense coaches, I feel, in New York. But anyway,
it's a different culture. You gotta have some intensity, I think, there. Like, you can't put a timid coach in New York.
No, and especially if you're playing out of MSG. If you're playing out of MSG, you are the team of New York. Like, someone was talking about how LA is always going to be a Lakers town no matter how good the Clippers are. And they're saying similar, like, it doesn't matter how good the Nets get. New York is going to be a Knicks town.
Yeah. Oh, it's kind of like that with like, hockey. Like, the Islanders are not the Rangers, No. It seems like that with most sports. They have one major team and then there's kind of a side team.
Right, and I'm from Long Island, but I'm still a Rangers fan, and it's interesting because you look back and I think the Islanders may have more Stanley Cup wins than the Rangers.
Yeah,
and there's a good dynasty for quite a while. There's Patrick Wall with the Rangers right now, or Islanders, I mean. And again, the Rangers are definitely up over the Islanders right now. Anyway, we were talking about sports quite a bit. I think it's
all
fun
good
to be able to like get hyper fixated on something, on the outcome of something that you don't have an impact on, but also is fun to be invested in. It's a good outlet. I accidentally have 4 fantasy NBA teams.
Accidentally.
One of which, it's like I had one and then I like clicked to make another and I clicked the button. It didn't seem like it worked, so I accidentally had 4. So I got 2 baseball teams.
You got to stick with it.
Hockey teams, and now the 4. Both my hockey teams are in the championship for fantasy, which is nice. But yeah, my Rangers have been doing so well, so I streamed in some Ranger players. I have Trocheck, Panarin, and Lafreniere in one league, and then Lafreniere and Trocheck in the other, and was not good. Last night for that.
Man, I haven't played any fantasy in a long time, not because I don't want to. I used to play a lot of fantasy football and a little bit of fantasy hockey. I never really got into the fantasy hockey a whole lot. I'd play a little bit just to be in leagues with friends, but man, there was one time I was in a fantasy football like 7 leagues or something, and that year was like my wife was like, "You gotta back off."
My experience with the Accidental 4 is it can become more about just the numbers, and just checking that, which is definitely part of it. But then when there's that many teams, that's all you really get your attention for. And I don't remember necessarily who's on what teams, so it's like versus the joy of my first fantasy team when I knew that person's on my team, etc. But well, this is really becoming a sports podcast.
That's okay. I'm sure somebody's enjoying. They're probably like, I hate the stinking Rangers and those Oilers and the Mets, and they're like, why don't they talk about something real? No.
Being a Mets and Jets fan, it's nice being a Knicks and Rangers fan because like the Rangers are kind of the Yankees, kind of the Knicks are kind of that, that the basic answer favorite team, right? Like there's no matter where I watch where the Rangers game is on, at some point, if it's in Edmonton, if it's in Tampa, you're going to hear, let's go Rangers.
Well, it's the same with like the Leafs or the, like you said, like the Yankees or, you go anywhere and you'll see a Yankees hat or, things like that. And those are usually the teams that everybody else hates too. But, this actually does play well into youth ministry and ministry in general because I think a lot of people, and I know you've experienced this, I've experienced this in the past, but a lot of people burn out because they don't find ways to shut off ministry because ministry is just, it goes and goes and goes. And if you don't find something to take your mind off of it and give you an out, that's a healthy thing, not an unhealthy thing. it can be troublesome. It can easily lead to burnout. So I think actually discussions like this are important because it helps us. It is okay to focus on these things. I mean,
Yes.
we don't need to make them God, but of course it's
No.
okay to focus on them. So, but anyways, beyond that, how's life treating you?
You know, I'm definitely on the busiest season right now.
Mm,
There's a lot of complicated factors going on. My wife's health. My wife is has a complex health condition that doctors are resolving while still not fully understanding.
yeah.
And so that's challenging. She's immunocompromised with immunosuppressants that are healing her bone marrow and such, but also leave her more susceptible for sicknesses and things like that. So she's at the stage where she's masking at work. And then when I'm because she's a teacher, and I'm in a situation where whenever we return to, when I'm in a long-term high intensity around kids inside setting, I will be masking again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of been a journey with us, but and I'm also bring as it. So let me just to talk about me and my personal state. Maybe I'll just let the people know who I am, where I am, and what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a youth pastor at the second pastor at a Seventh-day Adventist church here in South Asheville. We're situated here in Arden between Asheville and Hendersonville, just between still in Buncombe County, and we are 10 minutes away from the campus of beautiful Fletcher Academy, which is a Seventh-day Adventist independent academy. It's a supporting ministry, so it's the church proper doesn't organize it, but Adventists run it. And so it started really with a church school back in the day and K through 8, and then eventually expanded to having an academy where people can stay overnight as well or come locally. And my wife teaches at the K through 8. The K through 8 is supported financially by the church where I work. So part of my role is very much supporting that the kids at that academy, the 9 through 12, but primarily supporting the K through 8. I play with the kids once a week. I'm giving worships. Each of the local area Seventh-day Adventist pastors adopt a class. And of course, since my wife teaches 6th grade homeroom and middle school English ELA, I take the 6th grade every year, and that's a fun part. During the summer, out of our church, this is going to be the 20th summer in which we are running our version of a ministry called Flag Camp, which stands for Fun Learning About God. And we operate it in the form of a multi-month day camp out of our church campus. We have a community life center, a gym that is on our campus that has multiple classrooms as well, and copious space and bathrooms and things like that we use as the campus for that ministry. So it's a service that we offer at a ridiculously low price because we are completely nonprofit.
Yeah.
We receive subsidization. We have like a 7% subsidization or less, I forget, from the conference, Carolina Conference, Seventh-day Adventists. Every year we receive subsidization monies for scholarships from a ministry called Duncan Isles, which is funded by local church members. The local church provides some, but largely it's the very low rate fees paid for by the campers' parents pay for that, scholarships pay for that, and then the funds go completely to just making camp happen and paying as good a wage as we can, a pretty good wage to kids, to young people 14 and up and in college, to be able to pay for Seventh-day Adventist Christian education or a good education they need. So providing a job for them and providing a service for people who need childcare in the community with a Christian emphasis, that's what we do. And so from January on, I'm hardcore prepping for that, in addition to being a youth pastor and supporting the Saturday morning teachers of content, of kid content here at our church, supporting the club ministries we have for, I'm trying to remember what age Adventures starts, if it's 3 or 4. But
it's
from that age up.
I think it's supposed to be 5, but it can start earlier than that. Like I think they take them usually at 4 or whatever. One of my daughters was in it at I think 2 or 3 because my wife was teaching, and so she was just there.
we all know that exception.
Yeah.
Like I come from the Scouts, being a Catholic or being not Adventist and being a Scout, and they're like, well, he doesn't want to go into the little one, the adventure one. He wants to go to the big one, so they put me immediately to Pathfinders. We all make exceptions like that. But that's so we have club ministry that operates on the weekends and during the week that we support and I support as well. So I have like a great variety of responsibilities in addition to being the associate for my senior pastor, who, in addition to being our lead pastor here, is also the director of family ministries for our North and South Carolina for our denomination.
Yeah.
He travels and then needs me to back up and support. And, you know, I love my role. I love being able to be doing administration focused on the specific thing and purpose for the community. Yeah. I love that way more of my talents are being focused on being with people. And of course, I'm also responsible for the discipleship of everyone under 18, pretty much, and prepping them for baptism, things of that nature, which I love. That's one of my favorite things, just sitting there and talking about Jesus and the things that matter. So I have all these responsibilities. So this is a tough time because the spring is just such an active and vibrant time of any church community, especially to a school, especially when connected to a club ministries where it's finally spring, so we can do things outside. And I'm speaking for an area camporee, and there's graduations and parties and all these things happening. And even I have a family and a life, so my nephew is getting baptized and he wants me to do it, which is great. So I'm going to travel to Georgia for a weekend. Yeah, there's so many things to schedule and organize, and it can be a struggle. Like tax season is always very stressful. My wife and I are still finding a good balance on how to make that happen because she's a teacher. Spring's busy for her. There's concerts and everything like that. She's also the leader of her yearbook ministry, the yearbook at the Christian school. So it's kind of like, man, which of us are too busy to handle our spring? Both, right? There's a lot going on. It is, and so to be able to, with all these demands of all the negatives of, like, we love doing all these things, but it's all stacking up at the same time. Like you had said, I think it's so positive to be able to say, like, I could start to hate Wednesdays because there's handbells. I play with the kids all day, but I love that. And then there's also I play handbells. We have a handbell choir at our church, and we have a lot of Christian education that you can do formally in a school, there's a lot of families who opt to do homeschool education in our area. And so I'm not interacting with those kids at the school functions, but I can hang out with them at the club ministries that they're involved in and also in handbells, and I used to play. And so there's all these things stacked up, and I can be like, man, I hate Wednesdays. So it's important for me to be able to have a reason to love Wednesdays, like New Comic Book Day. Yeah. You know? To have that balance. Or like, man, the spring is so crazy. Like it's easy for me to be like, oh no, the spring, I haven't got enough done. But to say, wait, baseball's back. And to be able to have a positive too. With that, not because I hate my ministry. I love my ministry. But you need to have a balance because, okay, so we have a theme for the summer every year. And the theme spiritually that we're having for the teaching for this summer is moved with compassion. We're going through every text, a lot of the texts, where it says in scripture that someone was moved with compassion. And this beautiful verb, it gives the connotation, it literally means their bowels were moved within them, which in the language of the Greek there and the context of the Hebrew brings us that
I think it's stirred up. Splagizomai or something like that.
Splankton is the word. Yes, I remember reading that word and being like, Dr. Leatherman, I've never seen this in vocab. What is it? And his eyes just light up.
That's a great one.
Here's how you say it. And I'm about to rock your world. And Dr. Leatherman is resting in power, waiting for the resurrection of Jesus now. He was my advisor, and he's a good man. But he was so excited that I asked that. And it's so compassion, empathy, caring about other people. There's people who say, and it's the sentiment is relatable, Ryan, of, hey, you can have too much empathy. You shouldn't have too much empathy. Well, kind of. Empathy is simply the practice of attempting to understand the emotions of others. Yeah. And to relate and understand that, and in the process, perhaps feel that. Like sympathy is just trying to understand it, and empathy is accidentally somehow in the process or intentionally beginning to feel that. Now, are we always going to be accurate with our empathy and sympathy? No. So it's a process, right, of a skill. But
Yeah.
also, just because you have it doesn't mean you need to act by assuaging that immediately, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
we spilled a pickle jar. I dropped a pickle jar the other day, and in the kitchen, and spilled glass, little pieces, a big problem. I have a dog, Scout. She likes to lick
Hmm.
everything. Oh my word, pickle juice on the floor. Let's go. So I'm cleaning that up, and my wife is holding and hugging Scout, and she's like
Yeah.
distraught, right? Well, empathy is understanding, man, she's just confused and she smells something tasty and she wants to lick it. Like, we have empathy, we feel for that.
Yeah.
But would it be proper empathy to then let her lick up and lick up glass too? Of course not. Like, so you have the empathy and then you practice wisdom,
Yeah.
first of all, right? So, how wisely are we responding? The empathy is just having the journey of understanding where someone's coming from,
Hmm.
whether you do it accurately or not. The compassion, being moved, like we saw Scout when we were moved. But just because we're moved doesn't mean we let her lick up glass, right? And we
Yeah.
see this with Jesus' feedings because he's moved with compassion. He feeds them. Then they're like, hey, let's crown you as king. And he doesn't say, well, I have compassion, so whatever you want. No, there's wisdom. But in addition, it takes energy to have compassion.
Hmm.
It takes
Yeah.
energy to serve. And so is God saying,
Yeah.
have compassion to literally die? Well, what did Jesus do after he had empathy, compassion, fed them, then had to rebuff their inappropriate desires to lick up glass? I mean, make him the the king of their temporal king. He said, all right, well, I gotta be with you, so let's just step with every step of the way. He went off away. He
Yeah.
went off away. He went off away and he prayed and he gained energy. And there's a variety of ways to gain energy. Prayer is a crucial part of it, and there's others as well. I'm sure Jesus had a hobby, but that's an argument from silence. So, yeah, and that's the big thing too. If baseball is my only release, I'm going to be made in the image of my managers and players. If hockey is my only release,
Hmm.
and my only model for patience is Matt Rempe, you know, I'll spend a lot of time in the penalty box, and that's an inside hockey joke for everybody.
Yeah.
But yes,
Yeah, no, that's good, man. I'm loving the theme. I obviously you've studied into it, and interestingly enough, I remember years ago one of my early mentors said, "Never preach on something that you're not passionate about." And so it's great that you have this theme that's coming out of something passionate about. And I know you think this, I think this. That's an area, compassion, empathy, where the church as a whole, whether Catholic, Seventh Day Adventist, Southern Baptist, whatever, we've missed it too much.
yes,
We've completely dropped the ball on that. And I personally believe that that's why a lot of young people have left the church.
yes.
And so I think it's super crucial that you're touching on that. I love it. You've been there what, 3 years now? Is it 3 years?
Math is fun. 2021, summer of 20, like June of 2021 is when we came.
Yeah.
So June,
Ba-
June 2024 will be 3 years.
yeah. So almost 3 years. You're on the verge. And I've
Yes.
often found that, back in the day when they used to move pastors in our denomination every 3 years, I think they did themselves this big disservice because it feels like 3 years is about when you start to hit your stride.
Yeah.
And so, you're heading into camp season here for the third time. Do you feel like you're hitting the stride?
Yeah, I do. And but then of course I'm fixing and changing things up. And so I'm keeping myself from that too. There's aspects of which I'm very familiar, but then of course, in order to so our website was not functional. Like, you could not, in order to register your camper, you had to go to a website, print a PDF, and of all the documents you need, fill them out by hand, and either bring them into office or fax them, and then bring a check and all that. Like, having our 10 to 4 Monday through Thursday administrative assistant be the main intaker of that.
You gotta love that. Go and get our PDF off of our website, but print it, fill it out, bring it into us, or even better yet, fax it to us.
Yes, like literally the government is like the only one still, and like
I love it.
and here's the thing too, and like, because this quote unquote secure, but and here's the thing too, like, or people would email stuff too, and now switching to the website, and there's different infrastructural issues, and I'm building more systems to make it up and everything, but our intake is much higher. And it's just like the realization, man, we're getting the intense attendance we're getting in spite of all this, because people are so passionate. They're willing to do all these things.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of crazy. So just building the infrastructure with a great team, but also like making sure it all works and work with the team. It's in a way I have. So
well, I think it's really important
this
to
will be
remove...
my fourth summer also, because I came in the beginning of summer.
Yeah. I think it's really important to remove those barriers, though. Like, you know, you're talking about, like, people are coming in. Anytime you can remove a barrier from someone for them to come into a program or to come into your church the first time or your club or what, anytime you can remove a barrier, even if it's just that they have to print a PDF and bring it in, that's a huge barrier. Like, I would probably be like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, like, yeah, it's crazy. And like, so I have like way more staff applicants because it's so much easier. And like, this is even within the situation in which a lot of the applicants we work with are from Fletcher Academy, and they can't just scan with a QR on their phone because they're using the Gab phone system. Yeah. But they're still, you know, they can go on the computer and get the link. And my wife teaches the Captain Gilmer, like I said, and so she teaches 6th, 7th, and 8th. Some you need to be 14 to work with us. There's some 8th graders who are 14 or will be by the summer. She made it so that the link to sign up is in their school thing. So when they're done with work, they can, or their schoolwork or et cetera, or even at home, they can access the website and easily get in. And, you know, yeah, so I think there's aspects to which I am hitting my stride.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. There's also aspects to which there's parts of the job that used to be easy, and the workload for this position is based on that stuff having been that level, to where it's a little harder now, like finding staff, etc. But like my predecessor didn't really recruit at all, but for me, I spent 4 whole days sitting with the booth at Fletcher Academy recruiting.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, like there's all these things I'm doing that we didn't have to do before.
Yeah. Well, and that's changed across the board. I think I've heard from other camp directors, both local and, you know, other where you go away for camp, and they're all talking about but I mean, you go to any restaurant, like you go into Chipotle and you know that they're hurting for staff. So this is not something new. But yeah, it's something you got to face. And I think hitting it head on is the way to do that.
Yeah. And for us too, like we want to make it so that people can afford to work here. Like, cause ultimately if you're trying to pay for Christian education, you're trying to do the math of, okay, is this a good decision? Can I work here and do this ministry and be able to afford life, afford the paying off the loans based on how much I make now and can pay off to offset them for later, and doing all this math. And we want to be able to make it so you can afford to work here, because we're not here to make a single dime as a ministry. We're here to make it so that more people can afford to have their kids in a safe place. Man, I've just heard horror stories of what's available for childcare in our area. And I would describe the details to you, but those things are available for a variety of reasons, because the economy is tough and people are trying to make a profit and all these things. You know, it's not their fault. Even maybe it's someone's fault, but it's hard out there.
But it's so true though, and I think to some extent, and we've done this way too much in, let's say, Christendom, where we have underpaid our people because we use this excuse that it's a ministry, and so they should do it for less. But I don't think that's right. I don't think God operates that way, and so why should we operate that way? You know, like it's something I think we've really dropped the ball on, and it's hard in our system, you know, with the way that giving works and stuff, whatever. I mean, we can make excuses, but at the same way, we got to try to find a way to operate that will bless the people that work for us, the people that volunteer for us, the people that we're representing. Wouldn't it be good if all of our employees could go, hey, that's a great place to work? I think that'd be awesome.
There are some people, you know, I mean, we try to have great wages.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a person or two who works with us that uses, that the income is just, Dad wants me to see he could buy me a car, but he wants me to see the value of using my own money and buying a car? Sure.
Yeah.
But by having the wages we have, we also have the opportunity for people who say, if I don't make this much, I can't go to Christian school.
Yeah, and that's a big deal.
And yes, and so that becomes the majority. And so it's just opening it up, not policing of, hey, you can only benefit from this if you have this income, etc. It's just, here, come apply. We have the best candidate. You try to get the best candidates. We're also paying them for very hard work, because is it hard work to wash dishes and deal with a not so nice customer at Chick-fil-A? For sure. But then after that, the customer's gone and you're in the kitchen. The kid's always there at flag camp.
And the parents always picking them up.
Yeah, they'll be the same parents every day.
Yeah.
They were there to drop them off. They'll pick them up, so there's joys and challenges, but there's greater rewards too, from just your family. And that can be used just like with the spiritual thing to be abusive of. Since we're a family, you got to do this, even though it's not fair to you. Like stuff like that, which is not a good view of family.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, hopefully we can portray that well in our ministries. At the same time, it's like, I think that can be a huge witnessing tool. Like when you work that closely with young people for months on end, the influence you then have with them for probably the next 10 to 15 years, it's huge.
The relationships that our staff build with the campers that's why they come back. That's why we come back. That's why.
Yeah.
They know and love these campers, and we don't have the capability for boarding for people that don't live in the area. So the people that work with us live in this area. So when they're going to Target, Walmart, Aldi, they're seeing these campers, and they have these relationships. When I'm walking in and out of Lowe's, I'm saying, "Hey, how's it going, Mr. So-and-so? Oh, Pastor Rich. Hey, so excited to see," name redacted, at camp. Oh, I love seeing them at camp. Are you guys thinking about coming back? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
She wouldn't let me not send her. She would let me not send her. It's great. Looking forward to it. And when the campers come back, why is so-and-so not here? Oh, she's a real estate agent now, or she's working a medical internship to become a doctor and things like that. And she's like, oh, I'm happy for them, but I miss them. It's this lovely balance where ideally I'm helping my staff move beyond this position.
Yeah.
And I want them to.
So even though you're kind of hitting your stride here, you're going into this with experience, you're going into this with knowing, or at least I could say having an idea of what's coming because you've been there before. Is there any part of you that feels like you're kind of like dreading it or stressing over it?
Oh yeah. It's less than it has been because I know better.
Yeah.
I know better. Like remember the first 2 years, we don't have this many staff yet. I don't know how it's going to work. The applicants will come later. It'll happen.
Yeah.
Or this and that. I've discovered like, oh man, when I first started, so we have kids, campers aged 5 through 12, and there's more popularity in more campers in certain age groups than others. And the past, I'd freak out, but now I know I can just, if there's going to be like on a day, and it changes day by day because we provide that flexibility where you pay for the week, you pay for only the days you bring your camper.
Oh wow!
Independent of what you originally said. So there was a time in which I was like, you have to reserve the day. I know not to make parents do that. I know they're not going to be able to fully make that happen, and so there's just a piece of will happen. We'll likely have the staff to make it happen. If not, I can call people in, and we've just made it work in the past. So there's less worry about that. And so what I'm letting myself worry about has definitely be concerned about is definitely tightened in with my experience in the ministry. And so there's that. And I guess, the worry is just about I'm hopefully getting closer and closer to the right things. I figured out a lot of the details. I'm able to get more in on the mission mostly, which is good.
Yeah, that's super good. Okay, so you're going to hit this, obviously, the next few months once this starts, which it starts in June. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's so we're in the Seventh-day Adventist denomination and ministry and group, and we have we have a thing called camp meeting in the summer,
Yeah.
which is a big week-long situation. And so we start our staff training the week after that.
Yeah.
So first week of June, we'll do a bit of a staff training. And then so the second week of June is traditionally when we've started. And instead of continuing to the first week of August, this year we're actually going to make it only 7 weeks and the last week of July, because we have something that happens every 5 years
Yeah, 5 years.
in our denomination, a huge international camporee for all the upper club ministries in the world for our denomination.
Yeah, there's
And
around, for those of you that don't know, well, it used to take place in a place called Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and now it's moving to Gillette, Wyoming, and they're expecting like 60 to 65,000 people, most of which are high school age. So it's just this huge.
It's sold. Yeah, all the tickets are sold out. Like all the tickets are sold.
Yeah, it's
So there will be that many. Because there's people, even if people drop out, there's people who want to buy those tickets and be there. So there's
there's no problem reselling them.
No.
But so yeah, you're going into these 2 months, this time of crazy high impact ministry, a time that's probably going to have very stressful times and other times that are great and whatever. In that time, what are you going to do to keep your spiritual energy up?
Such a good question. No, I love it because I have people in my life that we talk about these things with. My best friend is Ruben Casabona. He's we kind of knew each other technically in seminary, but then we were kind of nearby districts, like 2 hours away, hour and a half away.
Yeah.
Is kind of nearby for first districts as they have as pastor. We're each having multiple churches and all that, and being out in more of the rural areas of North and South Carolina. And we became very close friends. We had a podcast for a while, and sadly good for him. It's a great position. He moved to Keene, Texas, where he's the media ministry pastor. And I eventually got moved here to Western North Carolina, South Asheville. And generally we're able to talk once a week and talk about life and how that balance and how we're finding strength in Jesus. For me, I've been really helped and assisted by an app called Dwell, in which I can just start my day by just having it turn on and just read me scripture. And I'm going through the book of Matthew. And having that pause so that on days where I'm in the space to be able to stop and journal and write up my thoughts, which is so good for me, because when I'm able to write out my thoughts and have them down, I could stop and process them. For me, it's my spirituality is really right now focused on taking the truth of Jesus and then my thought life and reconciling them.
That's great. So,
and but yeah, so basis, I have that time of listening to scripture and letting that really just and feed me and impact my brain.
Yeah.
And then for me, like spiritually, the compassion piece that is part of my teaching is first impacted and hit me personally. That's been a big part of it, like questioning the level in which I have compassion and the level in which Jesus and God have compassion on all of us and how they operate. Additionally, deconstruction and rejection of Babylon, of self-exaltation, of attempted self-preservation versus the principle of love, of divine love. That's kind of been the articulation point of my spiritual journey and my teaching journey as well. As Seventh-day Adventists and embracing the book of Revelation, we see this as a main theme that throughout history, and especially in the last days, the big battle is between preserving yourself, trying to preserve yourself no matter what it does to others, versus living for others no matter what it does to you, which is what Jesus fought on the cross, what we fought and lost against in the Garden of Eden, what Israelites fought and lost against in the wilderness, and what Jesus will ultimately defeat. He defeated on the cross and will defeat in the last days and will win through eternity. This daily choice, right? And I mean, compassion, love, all those things, they're kind of what's really in my mind. It can be easy with becoming very familiar with working with, going from the role setting I was in, when it's just like, I'm the Seventh-day Adventist guy and just everyone else is volunteers. And I really need another Seventh-day Adventist employee except for 4 times a year, basically.
Yeah.
to a situation in which there's tons of us in this area. I'm working with all these organizations, etc. With more volume, there's more opportunity to be disappointed and to have struggles, and to have misunderstandings, and to deal with the fact that there's a bit of Babylon in all of us.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I'm learning to both be very strict and honest about the extent to which I have that Babylon still in me, and Jesus is delivering me from that. And then also see how, okay, I think this person's operating more of the Babylon because of insecurity or whatever they're doing, and not just being like, they're bad, I hate them.
Yeah.
But
Well, and there's
saying and
this
having empathy
balance,
and compassion
right?
with it. So that's kind of the balance that's happening within my heart devotionally, and what's finding me strength and helping me get through it is having, you and I talked about this earlier before we recorded, the positivity of compassion. I'm not the divine judge. I don't decide whether or not Ryan is in the end going to be with us in the kingdom forever. I don't decide whether Babylon or love win in his heart. I don't decide that. Even if I'm really, really annoyed by the Babylon he's giving me right now, and you're not, by the way, but right. And so just having that balance of knowing that struggle, and just prayerfully having that centered, it changes things, man.
Yeah.
Because my spirituality is not just whether or not I read the Bible.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Well,
It's
and I think it
struggle.
has to go beyond, we have to understand that everybody else has a different internal struggle. Like, my internal struggle is one thing, and it maybe it's compassion. Maybe I'm a hateful person, and that's what I'm dealing with. That's what I'm fighting with. Or maybe it's lust or whatever. And, we have to understand that just because we're wrestling with one thing or finding success in one thing doesn't mean everybody else is. And, I just had this conversation with Juan Martinez from Florida, and those of you that are watching or listening, you'll see the podcast with him. And we brought up this concept of we're in an election year, and that's a big challenge for a lot of Christians, especially when we're in different parties. Like, if you got, like, let's just say you went and vote in November, and this is one of the points that Juan broke up. You vote in November, and 2 days later, you have to go to church with these people, right? That you may or may not agree with or disagree with. How do we love people when we disagree with them? But I mean, clearly Jesus did that, right? He loved people even when he disagreed with them, and when he was when they're challenging him and things like that. And that, I think, is our call as Christians, is to love people beyond political lines, beyond disagreements. And that's, I think, where real empathy comes in as well.
I think, something that has become, social media profits from interactions.
Yeah.
Right? And the interactions the strongest interactions, positive and negative, right? The ones that bring the most involvement, the reactions and things like that bring the most involvement, and most clicks and everything, are negative.
Yeah.
So,
or divisive.
That content is the most profitable for social media. And so, come on. I mean, does social media exist to make money or not? Like every business does. And when did Jesus, quote unquote, flame or quote unquote own people? Yes. But when? And reading through Matthew, listening through Matthew, this has hit me very much recently. But when? When does he call the Pharisees vipers? When does he turn tables? When? Except for that little sneak in John, where he kind of snuck in. Except for that, it's in the last week of his life.
Yeah.
It's the last message. That's the last bit. There's one of the founders of our church, Ellen White. She's been so grossly misunderstood.
Oh, absolutely.
Beloved people have misunderstood and just taken bits and snippets from like the last bit of 8-page letters to specific people and put all these things in a book. And then just there's a whole generation of people that don't want to hear a single thing from that woman's writings because they've just heard the hard part of an 8-part letter.
Yeah.
Which had all this preface to it. And the people that Jesus is harshest to have the highest responsibility, have the biggest impact, or have the deepest relationship with him. And it's the context of when he's saying these things. It's near the end. It's from a basis. And so it's entirely different from just commenting on a stranger, God hates your sin, on Instagram, and then walking away feeling so good about yourself. You know what I mean? Like that's
For sure.
not at all in any way, shape, or form what Jesus did when you read the stories. Right? So it's the 16-year-old girl and the presidential candidate have extremely different power structures and different power levels, right?
Yeah, they do.
Or let's take away the candidate, the megachurch pastor, right? Joel Osteen and 14-year-old on TikTok have entirely different power structures and have entirely different reasons or groundings for spiritual chastisement, or from what I mean, from somebody they interact with or have a relationship with. There's different anyway, that's all mixed up. But
it's like, and just to kind of back it up and pull into context. That's the important factor here. It's the context. It's what was the context of Jesus overturning the tables? What was the context of him calling the brood of vipers? What was the occasion happening surrounding it? And he was making an impactful point because of the situation and the time of his situation.
Yeah, and he was standing up for people.
Yeah, and it was like his last love statement to those people. And I think we miss that a lot.
Those hurt by them. Yes. We don't acknowledge those hurt by them.
Yeah, we miss it. We miss it.
Yeah, because there are people who are not let in that were there who are silent, and Jesus was their voice.
Yeah,
Jesus was their voice. Anyway.
And then there's the loud ones like me.
And me, the Peters, right? And a little thing too. Hey, if you're a loudmouth, you're probably already in some sort of ministry. There's a young lady I'm looking at, and she is so influential.
Yeah.
The challenge is she's gonna influence everyone to get off the rails, or everyone to get on them.
Yeah.
And so it's like, man, I'm not sure I'm ready to give her employment for this many weeks yet, but man, when she's ready, she's gonna be my best staff member.
Yeah.
There's that thing, like Peter can really get in Jesus's way and be like, all right, get thee behind me, Satan. And then Peter can also be the rock. He's either the devil's rock or Jesus's rock.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes you get this
Either way,
thing,
he's the foundation.
And I'm sure you've seen this, where sometimes I see people that are almost like the strongest advocates against, and my thought over years of learning has gone, wow, if that person comes around in whatever the context, if that person comes around, they will be a force for what, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, man, that person could be the hugest advocate. Absolutely. Completely Paul. For sure. So anyways, hey, Rich, this has been really good, man. I'm sure we've challenged some people. I'm sure somebody's going to Google compassion in Greek and try to figure out what that is, and hopefully they'll get it. If you want an easy insight into that, William Barclay has amazing commentaries on it in his new daily study Bible. I love the stuff he says about it. If you're not a hockey fan, you can check out the Rangers or the Oilers. And if you choose the Rangers, you're a terrible... No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, I hope you've learned something. I hope you come away with some value. I've enjoyed this conversation with you, Rich. I know people are going to enjoy learning and listening and maybe get some takeaways from this. And I don't know, maybe if someone is listening in the Asheville, Arden, Fletcher area, Hendersonville, they want to register their kids for flag camp, Google, you'll find it. And anyways,
if you go to ardenadventist.org, there's a banner right there on our homepage that'll bring you to our portion of the website, and easy sign up. We'd love to have you. And also, I'm looking forward to a Rangers Oilers Stanley Cup and a Mets Blue Jays World Series.
There we go. Let's do it. Okay, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. I hope you've had a good one. I hope this has been of value to you, and we hope to see you again soon.